The Wattage Ride coming out of McKinney, Texas. Now, mind you, this is not just a group ride, this is a race ride, meaning that there are actual stakes here and that people are trying to win this ride, and there is a finish line. And there are prizes for those who win, specifically coffee lattes provided by the Wattage Coffee Company or Brewing Company that's in Cadence Cyclery. Cadence is the shop that sponsors this ride and also sponsors my race team. My race team is called PACC, P-A-C-C, out of Plano, Texas. And you can see the kit on the right side there, right in front of me, in the red, yellow, and black, which are my teammates. I have 3 teammates with me on this particular ride today. And it's a smaller group than usual. I'm just doing a few cut shots here as we make our turns in and about the ride here. It was a very windy day. The forecast that I saw was about 18 miles per hour from the south. So if you look up at that top left, there's a map there. The wind is, of course, coming from the south. That map is oriented in the normal north, south, east, west fashion. And this meant that there were a lot of headwinds and a lot of crosswinds. And of course, some tailwinds. So now I'll throw up the xert profile for the entire group ride. And you can see a couple things. One is you see that there's a big initial dip in my MPA, which is that line across the top of the screen. That's when a rider attacked and there was a big chase. And so that rider was Nick Petrov. He is the guy in the white kit on the screen. You can't quite see him at the moment, but he is there he is, kind of peeking through there, about 4 or 5 riders ahead of me. He's got the SRAM on the back of his black bibs. And he is a very young, talented junior that's on some kind of junior elite team this year. And his brother was recently the under-23 U.S. National Cross Champion. And I just popped on Twitter and saw that his older brother Spencer just had his first UCI road podium. So he comes from good stock, a good cycling family that knows what they're doing, and there aren't that many pros locally coming from our area, and so that's pretty amazing. So he's a talented young racer that I raced last year when he was like a Cat 4, Cat 3. I don't even know what category he is now, but he's up and coming, getting stronger every year like these really talented juniors do. And we're going through a little section here. This is sort of in preparation towards getting to what we call the ranchettes. And I will point out when we get to the ranchettes, that's when the race is often lost or won in that section. So you can see here, if you've been paying attention to the actual footage, you'll note that I've been on the very back end of the group most of the time. And I would not say that it is easier to be in the very back on a very windy day. No, sir. No, ma'am. It is easy to get in the gutter, meaning that when there's a crosswind, and when we are in a bit of a crosswind here, it appears, yes. And if the group gutters you, meaning that they are not riding as far over in the echelon as they could, and there's no shelter because you're on the very back end, you're right behind the guy in front of you, but you're not really getting a draft because there's no echelon, it's a really tough to be in that position. It's much easier to be further up. So sometimes I'll find myself in a certain position in a ride, and so you can see here what I'm doing is recognizing there's really bad crosswinds here, and I don't want to be on the very back in the gutter like I've been most of the ride. So I'm moving up. I'm in the wind right now, actually. I'm not really getting any shelter, but I'm banking on the fact that either I can move into the echelon, someone will let me in, or my teammate up here, Mike, on the very front, is going to move back, get past, and here he is past, and that's Nick right there, very talented junior rider. It wouldn't surprise me if he becomes a pro one day. Anyway, so he just passed, and Mike has moved back, and we're sort of forming a second echelon now, and I'm getting shelter at this point, a little bit of shelter anyway, and so hopefully I can stay near the front. So wind management is really important on a windy day, where you are in the group. Sometimes I'll find myself doing something stupid, and I know it's stupid, and I just keep doing it. It's like I'm in stupid mode, and I'm like, oh, my legs don't feel good today. I'm just going to be, not moving up. So this was a section here. My teammate, John, he's our breakaway specialist. He told me to get on Nick's wheel to make sure that I was covering Nick if he attacked on this little kicker here. And it doesn't look that steep in the video, but it's pretty steep. I don't know exactly what grade, but I would say it's like over 8% grade. And John was telling me make sure to stay on his wheel because he could attack. He had attacked twice and been off the front and caused great pain and suffering for us. And so he was a big threat to roll off the front. Just ahead of him in the pink and the blue up there, you can see that is Rob Hall, whom I referred to in my last Wattage video as Gravel Guy because I didn't know his name. I'd forgotten his name. I was told his name once. And so now that I've gotten some feedback from my last video, I know what his name is, Rob Hall. And in 2018, Rob Hall was 18th in the Dirty Kanza 200. That is no small feat. Top 20 in Dirty Kanza in 2018, which means that guy can roll and roll and roll. And he spent more time in the front than anybody else on this ride, seemingly with unending energy and ability to just roll, roll, roll. So very talented and strong cyclist here. So you can see Tomer right there in the black kit. He was doing something, I think maybe getting a gel or something, was off the back a little bit, and then he's going to slot in here. So again, you don't really want to be in the very back. Even though we're going into a bit of a headwind here, it's not such a big deal. So here we are at the Ranchettes. This is the sort of most important signifying section that the race is really on at this point, because now we're also hitting a tailwind section, meaning that in a tailwind, the people that are drafting are not getting nearly the benefit they were getting when you were going into a headwind. So it can be a good place to attack. Roll off the front and everyone's kind of having to do the same amount of work. Nobody's getting a huge benefit. You can see behind me there I've got teammate Lynn, and then also behind him is Mike Stanley in the red Bicycle Plus racing kit. Mike just, I guess it was 4 weeks ago, he won 2 state championships in 2 days, if I recall correctly, both in his age category and his racing category. Pretty amazing feat. I think he won the 40 plus 1, 2, 3, 4, and I believe it was the Cat 3 championship that he won in consecutive days. So he is an excellent sprinter. Everyone in the area knows he's a great sprinter. I believe he's won the Fair Park A Crit a couple of times. That's the Cat 1, 2, 3, arguably the premier crit in our area in terms of weekday crit. So good to have him on this ride because he's a big talent and he's someone that I'm certainly keeping my eye on in terms of if this comes down to a sprint finish. And it occurred to me, like, should I be on his wheel? I'm not sure that I could actually pass him, but should I have an early attack to try to get a gap and sort of, outfox him if I could, or just stay in his draft as much as I can and see if he can take me to second place. So this Ranchettes portion, as we're heading north, has some ups and downs here. A little bit of elevation. It's not, it's a little bit like going on rollers, so you build up some speed going down and then you have some speed going up, but you can see it's requiring a substantial effort. You're having to put in watts over threshold to stay on terms with everyone here. And so a little bit of a gap opens up here, and we're going to be making a left-hand turn up here. You can tell that the pavement here is really quite rough on most of the ride here. My rear camera, the Cycle IQ, is bouncing up and down like crazy. It was really rough on the hands and the joints. And so they've opened up a gap here. We are now making the left turn with about 10K to go. It'll be just in a moment. And that's that final stretch of road that is to the finish line. And we're going to be going into a big crosswind where the wind is coming from the left to the right. And I'll point that out in just a moment. But coming to this turn, it's a little bit of a benefit to us because they're going to have to slow down and look out for traffic. We've come back to the group. This is Chad here. I believe that's Chad, not Rhett, on cadence. Yeah, I think that's Chad. And he is the owner of Caden Cyclery and Wattage Brewing Company, and he's, I believe, a Cat 1 or Cat 2. I mean, he's definitely higher than Cat 3, so very talented cyclist in his own right, in addition to being someone who owns Caden Cyclery and supports the local cycling scene, including my team, PAC. So, here we are, and the road is a little bit rough here. The wind is coming from the left to the right, and here I am near the back again. There were three themes I wanted to talk about. One is riding in the wind and how to manage that. So I did a lot of bad management. I took as much, a lot of rest where I could, but being on the very back is often in the gutter, and so you want to try to avoid that if you can. It's best to be in the echelon and not in the gutter. Another question that comes up in regards to this is how much time should you actually spend sitting in or conserving your energy in a ride like this? So it's a race ride, but it's also a group ride and it's also a workout. I can say in terms of myself, I didn't feel super great with all this wind and everything. I've had kind of a little bit of a chronic injury to my right leg and did not feel very strong or perhaps even motivated. So the last time I did the Wattage Ride, I spent a lot more time at the front than I did in this one, but did not spend a lot of time on the front in this particular ride. And I'll have the full ride with all of the front view. That'll be linked in the bottom below in the description, and it won't have any commentary, but it will have the overlays. I guess the third theme here is knowing your competition. So you want to win this thing, you've got to think who has what strengths and what am I going to do to counter the various situations, or what is the team going to do. So even though it would be great for me to win, that's not the goal. The goal is for the team to win. And for the team to win, that might mean me winning, or it might mean one of my teammates winning. And this is that hill that comes on this last bit of road with about 8K left, and this is a prime place to attack. And so I guess when I go back to that theme of knowing your competition, I pretty much know all the strengths of the riders here, except for one. And I'm foreshadowing. I'm less familiar with him. I don't know that I've ever been on a ride with him before. And so the rider I'm referring to is the one on the very front now, peeling off to the left, on the left side of the road now. So I talked to him after the race. It turns out he's like a Cat 5. He's only done one race in his life, but that was at the very beginning of the season. Cedar Hill, he raced the Cat 4-5, and he won his very first race, Cat 4-5. That's a very impressive accomplishment for someone with no experience, which means he has natural strength and ability, no doubt about it. So let's see who's left. In terms of my teammates, of course, John is there. At this point, it looks like I only have one teammate left, and I've lost my two other teammates. So if John is going to win for us, most likely John will put in a breakaway attack and go off the front. He is an excellent, okay, yeah, I have another teammate there. That's Mike there, who was just on the front. Sorry, Mike. And he's going back a little bit backwards here just to get some rest after being on the front. So our two-pronged attack, for the most part, for winning at this point would be John in the breakaway, winning from the breakaway, or me potentially trying to win from the sprint. Of course, there could be other scenarios in which the roles were reversed or something like that, but that's the most likely scenario based on previous things that we've done. Luckily, the guys in the front, are not guttering us. So we've got Rob Hall in the front. He's over to the left-hand side, which provides some shelter for the rest of us. And you can see he's pointing out cracks, potholes, and things like that. We're not trying to screw each other over. We're not trying to crash each other out. It's a friendly ride in that regard, in which we're trying to take care of each other. But it's a competitive ride, and the fact that there's a sprint ending and awards at the end makes it a little more fun, in my opinion. I don't do this ride every time, but when I do come out, it's fun, and it's fun because you don't get stopped all the time with lights like on most of the other rides I do. So if you have a gap, you can keep a gap. You don't just get stopped by a red light. So it adds to the strategy. If people treat it like a race, that means that you're learning race tactics. And There's not a lot of opportunity to learn road race tactics unless you are doing the road races, of which there are not that many, arguably, and certainly there aren't any at this time of the year here in Texas. So um, you can see that Rob Hall can just go and go and go. So I had a decision to make here. Um, Cadence pulls off the front. That's Chad. I decide that I need to react to this. I need to get on his wheel. And you can see this is causing all kinds of damage in the group in the back. If you look very carefully, you're going to see that at least one or two riders are actually dropped as a result of not a big attack. He didn't jump to 1,000 watts. He didn't get it. He didn't go all in. He just escalated the pace, and he's causing damage in the back. And you can see that there's a very sort of echelon that's, or at least for a moment there was, where everyone was really close together and maintaining formation just to maximize the aerodynamic situation. So I go to the front at this point. See, I did spend a moment at the front. But I am not going all that hard. I'm going below threshold. It's still not easy because I had to put in a lot of effort to stay on the wheel of Chad as he put in that effort. And 300 watts here, we're going uphill. So it's a little bit of a break for the rest of the guys behind me as we sort of catch our breath. You could look at the windmill on the left, or the whatever you call it, wind generator. It is going fast. That's how windy it is out there today. I don't think I'd ever seen it going that fast. It was making quite a bit of noise as it was spinning. So here we are again. And again, we're thinking about position. We have about 5K left in the race. So I've been on the front. I'm now drifting to the back. At this point, I only have one teammate left, and that's John in the back here. Behind Nick, and John is right behind me. A little bit of a downhill reprieve here. So there's the sign, New Hope, 3 miles, which coincides with my countdown timer of 5K. So that's the sign. The New Hope sign is the finish line. And going into this, it'll be a left turn, sort of a left sweeping turn of the road into an uphill and headwind sprint. So uphill headwind sprint. Have to think about how you're going to time that and when you want to go in terms of attacking if it comes to a sprint. So at a certain point, not very long from now, our group takes it pretty slowly. But actually, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. So the only thing I'm pointing out here, and it looks like, let's see, that is Tomer on the back here. Tomer put a lot of work in early, got the group going, getting a little bit frisky earlier. Probably some of that footage was cut out just because, I was just trying to reduce the clips to something more manageable. But he put in some big efforts earlier in the ride. We're completely in the gutter here as the wind in. I'm not even behind Nick. I mean, I'm not to the right of him. I'm to the left of him, trying to stay out of some of this crap and not risking as much going all the way over. We got these cones and things, and you can only get so much shelter. If I'd been all the way over, I might have hit that cone. I didn't see the cone until we passed by it, although John behind me did yell out warning about the cone. So if the group slows down too much, you can see the flag there blowing, the crosswind. If we slow down too much, that's going to really set up our breakaway artists that will put in a late attack. And the guys who don't favor themselves in the sprint but favor themselves in a longer, like a 3, 4, 5 minute attack. And so that's something I'm aware of. I'm hoping that John is able to save his energy here to put in an attack. If he does, that puts me in a nice position because that means that's forcing other people to chase. And hopefully they'll be using a lot of energy to do that chase. Just to explain some of the metrics on the screen here, on the bottom left, of course, is in red is the power. The blue is the MPA, which is an xert metric called maximal power available. That refers to a number that is particular to me based on my fitness profile about the maximum power available I have at any particular moment. So if I'm completely below threshold and rested, when I say rested, meaning I've been spending time below threshold, That will be a maximal number, in this case about, I think my fitness signature says 1340 watts. You can see that that number is below that figure, meaning that I have spent time above threshold recently, driving that number down. But I'm still pretty fresh at this point. I'm able to probably able to respond to most things. As the efforts go up, that MPA will go down. For example, putting in a sprint or an attack or something well above threshold will drive that number down pretty quickly. This is a metric that you can have on your Garmin. I was actually running Garmin maps on my screen, so I don't think, I wasn't really looking at that number or any other number on my screen for this particular ride. As my main fear was like missing a turn, and although of course I know the route at this point. So Gravel Guy Rob Hall putting in a big attack here. You can see he's no longer riding on the left. He is riding on the right side. He is guttering the group, which is a good strategy for causing decimation behind you. Nobody's getting a lot of shelter in this case, so everyone's having to put in somewhat equal effort. However, you can see that we're all still on terms. He takes a look back just to check what damage he's done. Do I have a gap? Has anyone gone off the back? He sees that everyone's managed to stay on, and so he's pulled the plug. You can see, just the fact that we're rolling by ourselves a little bit off the frontier indicates how much damage he did with that particular attack. I guess, I didn't know that I don't think I knew that we had a gap here. If I had the energy and the mojo to do it, that would have been a perfect time for me to attack and ride over the top of him. And so we'd slow down quite a bit. Chad goes to the front. Gravel Guy jumps on, Rob Hall, and Mike Stanley, our par excellence sprinter. He knows to be in good position. He gets up to second wheel, and I want to be on his wheel. His wheel is who I want to be on. So I don't want him to do a surprise sprint behind me, and I'm hoping that when he attacks, I can stay on his wheel. And then also, if I attack before him, I will catch him out, although it might be better to be further behind him if I was going to be in that position to try to catch him out. And young Nick is right behind me, and my teammate is behind all of them, John. We're down to less than 2K. And yeah, these roads really sucked in terms of the construction that they're doing. They're just kind of bone rattling right now. And we're not going terrifically hard here. Look, you can see my MPA is climbing close to maximum, not under 100 watts here. And I was expecting John or Nick to attack. Did not happen right now, at least. I guess I'm giving away my plot points here, but I was totally expecting an attack to go off here. And of course, I want somebody to chase down and follow that, but hopefully not me, and I can follow that person. That would be the ideal situation for me. We're getting close to 1K left, the 1K banner. We need to install a 1K banner. Maybe we need to spray paint the road or something. 1K left. And it looks like we're shaping up for a tactical sprint. So let's see what happens. So there's guys that may have the idea that the only way for me to win at this point is not let it come down to a sprint. And those are the guys that need to attack now, right now, or before now. You can see how slow we've been going. Chad says, this is too slow. I think about following, and then I see that Rob senses the danger and responds, so I don't need to respond. However, in moving over to the left, I've now lost my position, and Nick is no idiot. He knows that it's good to be on Mike's wheel, and I've lost Mike's wheel as a result of going off to the left. And so now we're down to less than 1,000K, and this is where everything has to happen. This is where the win will be decided. A little bit of a pause here. You can see my MPA has dipped a substantial amount just in that last effort as we're coming to this left-hand turn, which is the uphill headwind sprint. So that's John, my teammate. He's trying to put in the early attack. Didn't have a lot left in the tank, he told me afterwards, but he does have a gap here. Nobody's too worried about this because we still have some space to go. Now, a bit of an attack from the front from Rob Hall, who's accelerated the line. Mike is following. Nick is following. We have a little bit of a left-hand turn here. A car is coming. Oncoming car caused a little bit of disruption, I think. I'm not exactly sure why, but this was my chance. So boom, right now I go. And wild card behind me that I don't know very well, didn't know at all, is right immediately on me. He comes out of just briefly in my in my draft, and he comes to the left, and we're neck and neck. So you can see his wheel there on the left. He actually briefly passes me for a second in front of me, and then I was, there's that feeling of, oh no, I'm about to lose. I tried to put in a little bit more. I could hear him start to fade. He made like this sound, and I give a little bit of a yell, trying to, you know, get that last amount of core energy into myself to push a little harder. I didn't really get a great jump in that sprint, I don't believe, but he did push me to the limit. So I did achieve an xert breakthrough. So you can see that on the xert profile of the ride, where if you break the model, so to speak, you have a slight change in your, well, you can have a big change if it was a big breakthrough, but you get a change in your fitness profile in terms of like higher peak power, or maybe higher HIE, high energy, um, high intensity energy, how much you can go above your um, above threshold, and of course a change in threshold. So a win for our team, third win overall in my career on the Wattage Ride. Ended up with a nice water bottle and a free recovery drink from Wattage Coffee Company. And there's Rob saying, hey, you didn't get the memo that there's a new finish line. Of course, he's got boundless energy, and he could go for another 5 hours and just ride away from us all. But anyway, Wattage Ride. It's a really fun ride. For those of you local guys who haven't done it, that are into doing something like a race ride, the roads are a little bit tough, but I think they're better than the South Ride roads, which they'll swallow you up and eat you up with those potholes. So it's a really fun ride. Just got to be a little careful with some of the pavement, and really enjoyed it. And it's fun to have team tactics, and when the team works together and you get a result, so to speak, that's a lot of fun. So hats off to Steven, the guy right behind me, who pushed me to the absolute limit and just came within a whisker of beating me. So great ride. Hope you enjoyed the video. Later. Bye.